Hi there, this is John Drew and Jole Gabrielle from Elevated Planet. And today we are going to go through the third eye chakra, care of the wonderful Jole Gabrielle. Jole, how are you doing?
I am well, John. How are you?
Fantastic, thank you, fantastic. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it straight over to you and tell us a little bit about the third eye chakra. This one does intrigue me because I know this is a connection to higher self and all this kind of thing. So It's an important one.
We're getting there. It is definitely the gateway and the portal between the spirit world and the physical.
Right.
In Sanskrit, the Brow Chakra, also known as the third eye, which is located between your eyebrows, is known as ajna, and it's to perceive and to know. So this chakra usually kicks in if there's no type of parental environmental trauma, cultural trauma. You know, that's a big deal that people don't realize. You know, we really overlook the cultural trauma, which then begins to muck up the way the brow chakra works. Because now, instead of thinking to yourself freely, you have one more step you have to ask yourself before then you can begin to put together an agenda, a strategy, or problem solve. So it's really important that we work with our brow chakra. So what does that look like? I'll get to the explanation in a minute, but I want to just kind of talk about that because it really starts to kick in when you turn 30 years old, in your 30s. So it's like your experiences, your past, I guess, entanglements and behaviors, perceptions are now coming into the fore cumulatively to help you figure out who you are, right? And so when we talk about quantum mechanics and we talk about thoughts become things, we really need to dig in the brow chakra, because what we're wanting to move towards is a harmonious sort of thinking. But what happens is, due to the programming and the conditioning within society, oftentimes we sit in a state of dissonance. And so what's the end result of dissonance? Immobility, because you don't want to move. You have two conflicting thoughts going in your brain at the same time. Therefore, no bueno. You know, there's no moving forward. So the brow chakra provides the energy to experience clear and concise thoughts. You know, first and foremost, you want to have in there some spiritual reflection, being able to contemplate what's going on with you. But at the end of that contemplation, we need to stop here. It benefits us having a solution that supports us, right? So what does that look like? So we can have a solution we think about in our careers. A lot of us, when we work for other people, there's that constant thought in the back of our mind that we'll be let go, we'll be fired, laid off, da, 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 da. That is always sitting. Small business owner, will I get paid? Whatever. But to support your thoughts, you want to think, okay, I'm doing my best. I'm working hard. If I have an issue, I'm going to speak about it. And I'm going to see where I stand, my reviews. You know, your brow chakra starts to move in a way that supports you. Then there's the other side of things, which are programming and conditioning kicks in sometimes. I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I'm going to get fired. I don't know what to do. And now all of a sudden, the pretzel starts to twist and turn, and then the mud starts to rise. And now we don't have any more clarity and harmonious thoughts. Right. So when we get back to inner contemplation, that's why we meditate, so that we can begin to focus our thoughts in a way that support ourselves and our environment. So that's kind of what we want to dig in and be able to do in the brow chakra, because it holds the root for our psychological maturity. And it's very important. If we don't support ourselves and have positive thoughts about the way we're living our lives, how are we going to be able to get there or reach our goals? So it's very important. No matter where you are stationed in life, see your way out of that first. So when this chakra is fully activated, it stimulates both hemispheres of the brain. Now, people just think, oh, right brain, left brain, but there's more going on with that than that, because we also have the masculine and the feminine energy. And even in the tarot, we have the Empress and the High Priestess. What do they represent, right? They represent logic and reason and intuition. And those two parts of the brain, it is so important for them to be integrated, just like our male and female energy. We don't want to, like, we can engage, but we really want to have a level of balance. And sometimes balance isn't always 50-50 for everybody. Some people may be running with more feminine energy. It may work that way for them. So it's just important that we begin to listen to our higher selves, right? What does this look like to integrate both sides of the brain, the hemispheres? You listen to you, let go of the advice, the judgments, and the criticisms. Hear that voice, practice hearing that voice. Then once that voice comes in, now it's time to set about a strategy. Now, I know this to be true because of my learnings and my wisdom. Do I always enact it in my own life? I'm getting there. But for the meantime, that people ask how do I get out of depression? How do I get out of anxiety? How do I meditate? What do I do? You listen to your higher self. It says to you, okay, we're talking about a career or a job. Okay, yeah, you might be on the chopping block in this next round of layoffs. So right now, what you need to be doing is dusting off that resume and looking for another job. Now, how do we get caught up? Emotions. See, the emotions come in and we're like, oh my God, panic, fear. You know, so the brow is there to go, wait a minute. I have solutions to my problems. I hear the voice. You know, if there's any trauma, let me work that out, but let me get busy with the strategy aspect. So do you see how it's like this ebb and flow of energy? So because we know the left side controls the rational and the analytical thinking, and the right brain is your creativity and your intuition. So they may seem like they're opposites, but these opposites come together to create harmony within your life. So the sensory experience, definitely when it comes to the brow, is your intuition. How do you know your intuitions have kicked in? You hear yourself talking to yourself. The hairs on your body, the back of your neck stand up. You are moved, you're feeling vibrations and energies. Your mood has shifted and changed.
Yeah.
Okay, this is how we understand that our intuition is beginning to speak to us. So now we start to ask questions, right? So this is what makes us intelligent beings, right? Is not only are we able to read, write, and all that good stuff and add, but we're also able to pick up on vibrations in our sensory environment, which adds to us a level of emotional intelligence. And then to be able to know what our highest good is and our greatest joy, and to be able, like I said, to now we're in our 30s, distilling life experiences and starting to integrate them and activate them within our lives, both the good and the bad. We're accepting ourselves for who we are, and we're choosing life, health, joy, and in lots of ways to fulfill our destiny. So some of the ways to open the brow would be Tai Chi, always prayer. Prayer is all 7 chakras. Yoga, and then there's some things you could do with your eyes, exercises, tapping is always a good way to do things. Some of the spiritual exercises to bring in your meditation would be thinking clearly about your life. Always really moving towards uplifting movies, uplifting books, uplifting experiences, instead of reaching for what's not working. Reach for what works. And then sitting down, contemplating, meditating, and then using your imagination and visualizing the things that you want. You know, never giving up on that. No matter where you are in life, have a visualization goal of where you want to be, okay? Right. Or where you're going, where you really are, but now we just have to get the universe to catch up with that, right? So wisdom and knowledge is definitely a part of activating this brow chakra, because what it does is it allows us to really analyze our self-defeating behaviors, our limiting beliefs and words that we speak to ourselves. And it also strengthens our imagination and our intuition. and helps us to become more resilient, you know, because when we cultivate positive beliefs about ourselves and others, the world isn't such a harsh place, because then it begins to give us back what we're putting into it. I mean, that's just what simple math, right? It works on a spiritual level as well. So basically, in a nutshell, the brow chakra is there to teach us about the power of the mind to help us co-create our lives. So once we begin to balance and integrate those two hemispheres, life becomes a lot easier to sort of maneuver through.
Yeah.
Now, some of the body parts that are connected to this chakra, and that we know when we start having issues here, we're having issues in our brow, eyes. A lot of our children are born without being able to see. So that goes back to the parents. The parents, while the mother is pregnant, oftentimes they talk about food. You know, we never want to let that go. You know, that's important. But what is the mom thinking about? Does she have clear vision about what she wants to do with, you know, with the baby, the child? Does she want it? Does she know where school it wants to go to? A lot of mothers, or not, I want to say some mothers, not a lot, we don't put that out there, are in distress. They didn't plan the pregnancy. It's out of the blue. They're not ready for it. You know, they're with somebody who's traumatizing. So here we go, right? Sinus problems, issues with allergies. Anytime you're having issues like headaches, base of the skull, and the temporal lobes, these are problems. So the dysfunction of the brow chakra manifests as, you know, lack of intelligence. When you're not grounded, you're not thinking, and it's hard to problem solve. Being kind of really not being effective in the things you do. Overworking, they can cause issues such as migraines, if not dealt with, blindness, other eye problems, glaucoma, cataracts, brain tumors, and strokes. So these are the things that are associated with the brow chakra, remembering that it is all tied in. I mean, we're talking about the brain and all those nerves. What do? They're traveling down the spine and they're going out, 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 out throughout the body. So it's really important that we take time to work with our thoughts and the way that our perceptions of the world around us. Now, the gland that it deals with is the pituitary gland. And it's also cradled between the eyebrows, you know, inside of course, the cranium. And when people are unable to think for themselves or experience life from their perspective, it causes a lot of confusion and it gets in the way of mental clarity. So be careful with eating what people are serving you emotionally and spiritually.
Yes. Yes.
That's so important, because we're, as children, we're brought up in certain ways. You know, we have these traditions and these institutions that have, you know, made us who we are over the years. And a lot of that, of who we truly are, is buried underneath all of that.
Yeah.
So once we begin to question, you know, without judgment and criticism, question what you're being fed, the brain kicks in. You know, you're automatically starting the left brain, right brain to talk. So that's excellent. You know, hormones are also a big deal in the brain. We want to make sure that we not only nourish our bodies properly, but we want to pay attention to the levels of stress which we are running with. You know, and I hear very much so that, you know, I have bills to pay, I have mouths to feed. But at the end of the day, what good are you if you work a job for 10 or 15 years and then you die of a heart attack, versus having your family hopefully being supportive and helping you move through these issues, or listen to your intuition and now you want to activate and enact going back to school or doing something to where you can expand your life. Like, these are the things sometimes that gets the conditioning and the programming gets in the way of that intuition coming in. Yes. So we really want to pay attention to the sensory energy because the brow, it really provides the energy to all the rest of the chakras. So we can call this, I mean, they're all so very important, but you got to think of the brain and the heart kind of being those two, CEO and president,
Right.
of kind of the chakra centers, So when we think about that, we want to make sure that at times we also practice, like look at your environment, close your eyes and try to remember what you saw. These are exercises to help you engage that brow chakra. You want to listen to different notes and music and become sound bowls. Sensory awareness is so important. And when you feel that overload, too much Netflix, you know what I mean? Too much, Bud Powell and Thelonious Monk playing Wagner, go out in nature, go out in nature. Hopefully you're listening to good music. I use those as examples because what happens is when we engage that brain, it starts to heal us in our environment. When we can get those two sides of the brain talking, we're talking about power. Because I think science has said that we use 0.0001% of our brain. It's something like crazy, right? And why is it that those brain centers have been shut down? Conditioning, programming, water, food, heavy metals, on and on and on and on. And I always go back to what is in the basement of the Vatican. I want to know what those books have to say, right? That's where the magic lies. So we're cut off from some parts of us, but our brain is so very incredible that it begins to start to remember once it starts firing, right? So it really helps us expand our realms of possibilities and lets us see places and spaces where we can possibly, do more, be more, have more. So it's very responsive to positive energy and goodness, the brain. When it honor, integrity, affirmations, when you have confirmation of your worth, the brain is really strong. When you see people who are oftentimes tired, it's tied in to depression and low self-esteem and anxiety and overwork, and all of that is tied into the brow chakra. So when you go into that place of feeling bad about yourself or being overly tired, it's time to really start affirming what the good is in your life and being grateful.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that I noted from where you were talking about, what you choose to ingest, if you like, by way of say programs, right? Or music for that matter. There's stuff that's so uplifting out there, yet so much of the movie industry or programs, they're stuck in this dense energy, right? And we it can be really entertaining,
Right.
but if you think about the certain, say, movies out there which always give you that feel good factor, when they reach the end and you just feel elevated, that feeling that you get is fantastic. And it's the same thing with music, right? So there are certain things that really help you to get over that, because that's, talking about, there are times when you worry about whether you're going to get fired, whether you're going to get, whatever bad things could go on. We struggle with focusing on what might happen in a negative sense. Okay, so what I have always found that, the meditation thing is really important, because it centers you again. It brings you back to the present.
Yes.
You're not worried about the future. You're not mithered about the past. Now, one other thing that you mentioned, which I thought would do with a little bit of extra explanation, you mentioned the word tapping as a technique. Now, would you like to kind of just elaborate on what tapping is? Because, a lot of people, I'm guessing.
Yes. Okay. It is known as EFT, or the emotional freedom technique. This is not to confuse it with therapy and that modality of psychotherapy, because that also has another EFT thing. But we're dealing with this, which is where you're tapping on meridians in your body to sort of reprogram the subconscious mind, and this is what you do. You have these points that you tap on a regular basis while you're saying a script. And the first script that you say is one that is negative, all the negative thoughts that you believe. And you just keep saying it until you kind of take it down a notch. And then you begin with the positives, meaning take the feeling down to where you're not feeling, and then you move into the positive. And there's a lot of, if you Google, YouTube, a man named Brad Yates, he's fantastic. He's got a whole library full of tapping. And there's also, I think Ortner is the name of the gentleman who has a whole book and series about tapping, and it is truly effective. Now, with anything, it takes time. You've been programmed and conditioned subconsciously through symbols, you know what I mean? Through sounds. And so now it's going to take a little bit of time. Yes, miracles do occur, of course, if you believe in them, but the miracles happen to me cumulatively as well.
Right. Yes.
So tapping helps to release some of that. It's truly a marvelous healing modality.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, no, I saw about this and I researched it myself going back a little while ago, and it is amazing because, I mean, for a start, I didn't even know what meridians were, right? So the energetic kind of flows that go through the body, and knowing where to find them and all this. So the whole thing is a fascinating subject because it goes beyond, if you like, the normal physicality of us, right? This is different. This is the other part of you that tends not to be discussed in mainstream. So I think it's fantastic that we kind of bring this forward, really, and you give us the sources where to dig deeper. Okay, fantastic.
And another thing I would just like to put on the table about the right and left brain and the two dualities and moving into integration, we really need to think about, especially from a medical perspective, integrating Eastern and Western medicine,
right.
Especially within ourselves. So Western medicine, even though we work with the chakras and we're doing a lot of Eastern and healing and intangible, spiritual, emotional work, we need to make sure we balance that out with what the Creator has gifted people with researching and investigating and figuring out with the human body. So we want to make sure that we not only eat right and exercise, but then we do our own research, or not research. The doctors did the research. We just need to do our reading and our study, right? To know how to best deal with our own selves, because free will and freedom of choice is a huge part of your brow chakra. And I know through my conditioning and programming and cultural as well, it was very difficult for me to go to the doctor because I never really get the same treatment that other people got, no matter what kind of level of medical coverage I had. But you see, I had to take responsibility for that and come in there armed, start asking questions, start investigating, knowing a little bit more about what your condition contains. That's when the Eastern medicine is starting to come in, right? Because now you're knowledgeable and you're wise. Like, Eastern medicine does not keep you ignorant. It really wants you to know all of what goes on in the workings of your body and how to use Mother Nature to work on that. Like those women in the old, putting together those poultices and, or what, those, all of these old wives things, that's like Eastern medicine of the earth, So I want to give credence to both, allopathic as well as emotional and spiritual. We need that integration in the brain as well, because you are self-evident. You have free will. So no matter what other people are telling you, it is up to you to decide what your life is going to look like. You have permission to do that. Yes. So what does it start with? Boom, full circle, positive thinking about yourself and your environment. Because the brow chakra controls our physical body just as much as it does our mind. So what are we putting in? It governs our heart rate, our blood pressure, and your ability to withstand pain. And so once you're able to harness the power of the mind, you're really in an expansive mode, and a lot more of the feel-good hormones and vibrations start to be released. Now, you may need help with that because what is it? Oxytocin, right? So what you can do, of course, first and foremost, 1, exercise. 2, get into nature. 3, dance. Get out there with your kids or your people and just shake a leg, you know.
I feel I was born to dance. You know?
We all were. But, you know, how often do we hear, oh, you can't dance and so can't dance? And I know for me, I was told I couldn't dance. I just stopped dancing.
Mm.
Now my knees just don't even want to cooperate with me, you know? So never stop dancing through life, you know, keep yourself moving. So as the mind becomes healthier, your perspective and your outlook on life, so does the physical body. It totally translates. When we think positively, situations unfold in a positive manner. And when we start to swerve negativity from others, when we start to move the conversation in a different direction, when we start to deflect the gossip and begin to infuse positive energy, things start to change. You know, they really do. And our emotional responses and our behavior begins to not only support us in our environment, and then we're magnetizing in better experiences. It's simple math. It really is when it comes to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really fascinating stuff and very important stuff. And I'm looking forward to our first meditation on this as well. So thank you, Jole. Truly appreciate all the information. And I'm endlessly fascinated by this. And I look forward to the meditation and see where it takes us on this journey.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jole. And thank you to our Elevated Planet community. Thank you.